Georgina, I think it might be you addressing our committee.
Yes, can you hear me?
Welcome to the committee.
Cool.
Thank you.
Sorry,
You're good. We have your written submission. And so you have 10 minutes to speak to it, make any points you like. And if you'd like some questions at the end, then please just consider that in your 10 minutes.
Sure. Are you able to see me?
We can't see you, but we can hear you. So I don't know if you want to try and put your video on. It's always nicer to speak to a face. But
here I am, sorry. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and allowing me to speak today. My name is Georgina Blackmore, and I will be speaking on behalf of the organisation Speak Up for Women. Speak Up for Women agree that conversion practices should be outlawed and support the intent of this bill. I will restrict my comments and recommendations to the exclusions mentioned in section 5.2. By conflating sexual orientation and gender identity in this bill, I'm afraid that the bill presents us with a paradox. It is simple for people to understand how they could avoid subjecting someone else to a conversion practice based on their sexual orientation. It is straightforward to understand that it's when someone takes action towards someone else based on their sexuality that they would potentially find themselves drifting towards the core apparatus of this bill. This bill is paradoxical because not taking action when it comes to gender identity, however, could potentially cause someone to be accused of a conversion practice. A health practitioner who does not treat a person's gender dysphoria through biomedical means, or instead chooses to treat the patient through psychotherapeutic means, could be deemed to be practicing conversion therapy. A parent who does not agree with treating their child with biomedical means, or chooses instead to seek out psychotherapeutic means, could be deemed to be guilty of conversion practice. Sexual orientation has essentially never necessitated any form of medical care to support its emergence, maintenance, or expression. This would all be very straightforward if identification with a gender and the associated gender dysphoria was as stable and as constant as sexual orientation is. However, it appears that gender dysphoria and with it gender identity can sometimes be fluid and transient. Speak Up for Women recommend that the committee remove gender identity and gender expression from this bill. Failing that, we ask the committee to consider adding an exemption clause into section 5.2 for parents, wider whānau, and other professionals such as teachers. We recommend the removal or amendment of section 5.2b and section 5.2c. We recommend that additional exemption clause be inserted into section 5.2, or alternatively expanding the current health practitioners clause to protect alternative ethical treatment pathways for gender dysphoria that currently exist and may exist in the future. I will speak to that last recommendation first. Therapy designed for children with gender dysphoria falls into three models. 1, early transitioning, or the gender affirmative model. 2, watchful waiting, or the wait and see model. 3, therapeutic, or the developmental model. The second and third options are sometimes denounced as equating to conversion therapy, but nothing could be further from the truth. These models are backed by scientific research and literature. They consist of an unbiased and a gender-free therapy practiced by ethical health practitioners. However, the first model, the gender affirmative model, involves the use of puberty blockers, synthetic hormones, and surgery. The use of biomedical interventions to treat young people with gender dysphoria is a relatively new practice, becoming more mainstream in the last 5 to 10 years. In the last few years, however, we have seen the rise of a new cohort, detransitioners. Detransitioners are people who underwent biomedical treatment for gender dysphoria, usually at a time when they were not yet legally adults. They are people who now regret their transition, wish to reverse the changes made to their bodies, but sadly can be left with permanent physical consequences. They were treated by the adults in their lives as if they were definitely going to go on to permanently identify as transgender, but in fact, they were not. The most famous example of detransition is Kiara Bell. Last year, the UK High Court ruled that puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones were experimental treatments which young people are highly unlikely to be able to give informed consent to. One of the claimants, 23-year-old Kiara Bell, underwent puberty blocking and cross-sex hormone treatment, as well as a double mastectomy, through the gender clinic Tavistock and Portman Trust. She has been left with a deepened voice, facial and body hair, and the treatment may have sadly left her sterile. The judges noted that the long-term consequences of treatment are not known. the Trust was unable to provide the court with any clinical explanation as to why there has been a dramatic increase in female patient numbers and why a disproportionate amount of gender dysphoric children who also have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, as well as other mental health conditions. The Trust were unable to provide evidence that puberty blockers alleviated distress. Following this judgment, the NHS immediately suspended all new referrals for puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for anyone under 16. Health practitioners should not be compelled to apply a one-size-fits-all model to their patients, especially when that model is on shaky legal and ethical ground. We recommend that the Health Practitioners Clause 5.2a be retained and expanded to include all healthcare practitioners. I know that other submitters have spoken to the fact that some healthcare practitioners are not captured under the definition in this bill, and that they should be. So I won't labour that point, just to say that we agree with them. We recommend that the committee consider adding an exemption clause into section 5.2 for parents, wider whānau and teachers as they pertain to gender identity and gender expression. We must not be criminalising parents who choose to take a cautious approach when supporting their child. We are seeing some jurisdictions roll back, cease, or put the use of puberty blockers and synthetic hormones under review, such as the UK, Sweden, and Finland. In light of the rise of detransitioning numbers, I think we can all empathise with parents who opt to decline, stop, modify, or even reverse biomedical treatments for their children. Treatments that in other countries have been restricted, banned, or are undergoing an ethical and legal investigation. We recommend that sections 5.2b and section 5.2c be removed, be removed or amended. Both clauses exempt an individual from prosecution for conversion practices if they are assisting a gender transition or somebody's expression of their gender identity. The origins of these clauses is from the conversion practice legislation in the state of Victoria in Australia. Political lobby groups at the time heavily influenced this wording, and it is our view that the reason that these two clauses were written was because those who actively promote social and biomedical gender transition only are aware of the rapid increase in detransitioning in individuals and intend to exempt themselves from prosecution. These clauses aim to provide legal cover from charges of conversion practice brought by detransitioners against them. my apologies. These clauses were designed to try and protect a culture of unquestioning affirmation that exists in rainbow youth drop-in centres, where you walk into a support group, you get instantly affirmed, you get an introduction to an endocrinologist, you're given a breast binder. You walk in a lesbian woman and you walk out a trans man. These are conversion centres, and these two clauses are there to protect them. What these exclusions do is remove legal recourse from detransitioned people who have experienced the worst kind of conversion practice operating today, a conversion practice that has irreversibly changed their bodies and robbed them of their fertility. Also, the term assisting here places a burden on any interaction with a person who is suffering from gender dysphoria that the interaction must be positive. Taking a neutral stance or disagreeing with them could be interpreted by the layperson as constituting a conversion practice. Detransitioners may also have been subject to change or suppression practices based on their sexuality as well. There is evidence to support that in some cases, a person can be coerced into gender transition to suppress their homosexuality, to become the straight daughter rather than the gay son. It has been reported that in the UK Tavistock Gender Clinic, there was a dark joke amongst the clinicians that there will be no gay kids left. A clinician has said, maybe we are medicating gay kids, maybe we are medicating kids with autism, maybe we are medicating traumatized children, and if we are, we're doing bad things to these vulnerable kids. Earlier this year, the listener reported a heart-wrenching story of regret about a lesbian New Zealander. She was prescribed puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and had a double mastectomy, all before the age of 18. At 18, she had a hysterectomy. In Australia, two parents had taken a case to the Supreme Court because their child was removed from their home and taken into care. The reason for this uplift was because the parents did not want to approve biomedical intervention to treat their child's dysphoria. Out of caution, they wanted to explore less invasive psychological treatments first. Distressing examples such as these are coming to light every day. I hope the committee will agree with me that when I say that restricting health practitioners, parents and whānau to only one high stakes option is not in the spirit of this bill, and that should be made clear in this legislation. To sum up, it may be that somebody practicing therapeutic methods that aren't affirmative, i.e. not body modification, could be subject to a criminal complaint and taken through the process of one, which could theoretically destroy their career and reputation, even if they are not found guilty. The process is the punishment. You might be of the mind that this bill would prevent criminalisation for the things I have mentioned here today. But the question isn't, will they be found guilty? The question is, will ambiguity mean that health practitioners and parents will need to go through a criminal prosecution process just to be found innocent? A process that is a punishment in itself, one that could ruin careers and tear families apart. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georgina. You have used up your full 10 minutes, so the committee thanks you for your written as well as your oral submission and your time today.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
We have the next